live with my family in Arlington, Texas, a city of about 400,000 people that lies on one of the country's largest reservoirs of methane gas, called the Barnett Shale. So do millions of others who call the western side of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex home. I was a stay-at-home mother with my son, pictured here as a toddler, when the process of hydraulic fracturing arrived in our area, aided by very slick propaganda and very cooperative politicians. Prior to that, I had been an instructor and researcher in economics. Arlington is a very conservative community with a lot of support for fossil fuels, like much of Texas. Fracking soon was accepted by most people, and very quickly, our city was just covered with gas wells, hundreds and hundreds of gas wells. By the time 2012 rolled around, we had close to 400 methane gas wells in our city, compressor stations, pipelines, fracking infrastructure, and all of this was being developed in people's backyards, next to playgrounds, next to daycares, next to medical offices. It was happening right next to us. 1 million people in our county of Tarrant today live less than half a mile from oil and gas development. On your screen, you see a picture of a compressor station that I took with my phone. This is a very small part of it. This compressor station covers an entire city block. When you look at this image, you see no emissions. Right across the street from it is a high school, and there are homes, businesses, and other schools around it. However, when you turn on an optical gas imaging camera, which has the capability of making us see pollution that we cannot see with our naked eye, this is what you see. Out of that stack, you see huge plumes of gases coming out. Fracking extracts methane gas, and in the process of extracting it, it also emits methane gas in huge quantities, along with hitchhiker compounds like benzene. Methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. In the first 20 years after it is emitted, it has the potential to heat the climate, to heat our atmosphere by magnitude of 87 times more than carbon dioxide can in the first 20 years after it is emitted. So in the current moment, controlling methane emissions is very important to slowing down the climate crisis. Fracking in Arlington is contributing to the global climate crisis for everybody. However, Arlington's children have been paying another toll as well. 1 in 5 children in our county have asthma, according to a survey done by Cook's Children of Health in the North Texas region. According to our county public health department, we also have the highest rate of birth defects of any similar county in the entire state of Texas. The peer-reviewed science has grown exponentially and includes hundreds and hundreds of studies documenting health and safety risks for communities living with oil and gas development. This documentation includes results that show low birth weight, preterm birth, poor birth outcomes, congenital heart disease, respiratory disease, and increased cancer risks. Over 30,000 children in Arlington go to public school, less than half a mile from gas wells, and up to 8,000 infants and young toddlers attend private daycares inside that radius. Yet these children have absolutely no voice in any of the decisions that have expanded fracking all around them. As a mother, I knew I had to act. Our generation's fossil fuel use and extraction is intergenerational theft. It is robbing all our children of a healthy community and the prospects of a livable future. So I felt that I had to bring the community together to build a local resistance movement and build power to advocate for our children's interests. So in 2015, I founded the grassroots organization Liveable Arlington. Our rallying cry to stop fossil fuel expansion was the local health impacts of fracking on Arlington's children. But we were also taking aim at the climate crisis. So I want to tell you a little about what these mothers have accomplished. You see a picture of Lake Arlington. This lake provides water to 500,000 people in our county. A wastewater injection well is used to bury fracking waste that is so toxic that it cannot be cleaned, recycled, or reused. It is buried deep underground in injection wells, which often leak. Our city, which has very few rules governing fracking, has a ban on injection wells. So does Fort Worth, which is next to us. Neither city allows the disposal of fracking wastewater. In 2017, the state of Texas overruled our local ban on these injection wells and permitted just such a well right on the shore of Lake Arlington, the further shore that you see, the western shore. Politicians who had been very well funded by fracking money had passed the law that preempted our local rules. We at Liveable Arlington were a tiny organization who had just received our first grant of $1,300. We decided to campaign against this. Within about a few weeks of this permit being approved by the state, we found out through the community and submitted almost 3,000 requests from Arlington residents requesting standing in a public hearing for the well. That volume of requests was unprecedented, and the state regulator and their staff were completely overwhelmed and paralyzed by the volume. They kept moving the venue for the public hearing to a bigger and bigger and bigger site, which was kind of amusing. The company's lawyers kept asking for postponements because they hadn't anticipated so many people at the hearing, and they needed more and more and more time to process all the requests. This became a public relations nightmare for industry. Every local media outlet covered it. Eventually, it became such an embarrassment that they withdrew their application. This was an unprecedented loss for the fossil fuel industry. Our grassroots insurgency of mothers had taken aim at the fossil fuel empire and dented it in one city in the heart of Texas. People power had accomplished something that none of us believed might happen. We didn't stop there. Our support grew beyond mothers, and we decided to campaign for better rules to protect our families. We won some strengthening of our gas drilling rules, and we decided to start challenging new fracking permits. A little over 2 years ago, French energy giant Total decided to seek a permit to drill 3 gas wells behind a preschool in East Arlington. The preschool served only children of color. 100% of its students were children of color, and they were little. They were infants to 3-4-year-olds. There are more polluters in communities of color. This is by design, and historically these areas are what are known as sacrifice zones, and more polluters are sited there. Liveable Arlington worked really hard to change that, and we decided to throw everything we had to help this community fight this permit. And we framed it as an environmental justice issue, and we won. This too was unprecedented. In winning with and for the most vulnerable communities in Arlington, we became part of a larger struggle for civil rights and environmental justice, not just in our nation, but across the globe. This one organization, Liveable Arlington, has crafted wins in very tough fights against oil and gas in one Texas city. Is this a story of David slaying Goliath? Yes. And David, in this case, a very small grassroots organization advocating for climate justice, can do it over and over again. So how do we do it? These are some of our organizing principles. They're simple but strategic. First, articulate a positive vision. Our resistance exists to fight for a livable community, a livable Arlington, and a livable planet for all our children. It is driven by deep mother love. Root your advocacy in the most current science. Use what you learn to educate policymakers, media, community members, and bureaucrats. Become a resource for everyone. Search for common ground. I cannot emphasize this enough. Our team members talk to everyone. We don't subject them to a values test, a political test, to see if they stand on the same high moral ground. Children's health is a shared concern. It is apolitical. Be nice to people, especially when you disagree. That may sound trite, but it has a purpose. Our activism and campaigns offer everyone an opportunity to redeem themselves, to choose to make better decisions for our community, for our children, for our planet. We build bridges. In order to win, one has to sway the other side. So this is strategic. Build broad, diverse coalitions across race, across socioeconomics, across gender, across identity. In our campaign to stop fracking behind Mother's Heart, the preschool that I told you about, we allied with organizers that were working on poverty, on immigrant rights. We allied with the Social Justice Committee at the largest Catholic church in town. We worked with the administrators of the preschool, affected neighbors, and parents. Do not confine yourself to environmental groups alone. The air we breathe, the future of our children on this planet, concerns everybody, not just environmentalists. Empower people. What does that mean in our work? At Liveable, whenever we have gas well hearings, we fan out through the community and find ways to reach everybody. For the preschool campaign, we talked to more than 1,000 people in the neighborhood. That was the first opportunity they had ever had to learn about how gas wells are permitted, what the impacts of these gas wells is, how they could participate in asking the city to deny the permit. We would hold tailgates at the City Hall parking lot on the day of a hearing, and as people ate, we would walk around and tell them how to fill out forms, what the rules for speaking were. We had talking points. We would help them craft their speeches so they could become the voices in this campaign. It is really, really important that the people who are being harmed are front and center in a campaign. Another thing I want to say, this is a long struggle. It is very hard to win everything you wish for, but small wins like this one are not a cause for despair. They give us a lot of hope. And we don't get everything we wish for, but we take the inch we get, even if it's not the mile we wanted. We make sure we damage the other side. We make sure that we win hearts and minds, and we come back to fight another day. Justice restores power to community members. The director of the preschool, Wanda Vincent, who you see on your screen, is a fierce advocate for all the children in her care, but she had never been asked to speak up on an environmental issue. We worked with her and her parents to become spokesperson for the children in our campaign, and this was absolutely critical to our win. Liveable Arlington's campaigns have changed the public narrative on fossil fuels, where we live, and around this country and around the world, in fact. Our campaigns have been featured a lot in national and international media, and they have revealed the truth about fracking, its climate toll, its human toll, the impact it's having on our children's health to a very large audience. We've been written up in the last 2 or 3 years in almost 1,500 national and global media outlets. We are challenging fracking's social license, beating the fossil fuel propaganda machine in the heart of the petrostate of Texas. Since Russia attacked Ukraine, things have taken a turn for the worse. Large drillers, big global energy corporations are using this as an opportunity to expand their footprint where we live. Fracking is growing because they're using the war as an excuse to build and lock in demand in Europe for decades to come. They're using this to give life support to what is and should be a dying industry, what is a killing industry. However, in the grassroots, in the trenches in Arlington, we still believe that we can win this fight, that people power and persistence will win the day, win the future for our children. This is not just an issue in Arlington. It is happening across the world. The drivers of the climate crisis and the solutions to the climate crisis exist in every single community because we all consume fossil fuels. Acting locally, I have discovered that even when faced with a huge global problem and what seem like insurmountable odds and very, very resourceful, powerful enemies, we can still make a difference. So my challenge to everyone is that if we all acted locally and took on the climate challenges that we see in our communities, that may not be producers of fossil fuels, whether it is electrifying transport, electrifying buildings, building green infrastructure, developing a local food system, developing tree canopies. If we, in the grassroots, take on these challenges where we live in our own communities, collectively, we can become a powerful force, not just to implement the solutions that already exist, but to change the power structure that has kept us trapped at the mercy of the fossil fuel industry.